Hello again, everybody. So this is our last video as far as the introduction. Already went through all the basics with regard to the class, the online nature, how we're going to treat it. Your second video, individual for each class, your syllabi, some different individual tips as far as, just what do you have to print? You don't have to print anything, but how to access specifics of the class, textbook rating, all that. But now, for all of you, no matter what class you're in, you're going to have to submit some, whether it's quizzes, tests, both, only one or the other, you're going to have to submit some items to me. So how are we going to do that? Well, again, whether you print out the test or quiz itself and put your answers on it, or you're doing it just on your own notes, it's fine either way, but you need to be able to submit that to me in some way, and you're going to submit it through email. So what are your options? Well, again, whether you're writing it out in your notes or you printed out the test and you're writing it out, for a lot of people, some sort of a scanner. That is one of the first and most common options. Now, some of us actually have a printer scanner combo at home, and that, just your scanner, just like a photocopier, just all your individual pages, and it converts that file to a PDF file, and you could email me that file. That certainly works. If you have a smartphone, I do all that. I don't have a printer scanner at home, but I use an application called TurboScan. It's a free application. Any smartphone, you should be able to go into the App Store, look up TurboScan. TurboScan is a very good, friendly app. It's almost like you're taking a picture of your page, but it converts it to a PDF file. And that app happens to do a very good job as far as like seeing the borders and the edges. Also does a nice job of kind of like zooming in a little bit as well. So TurboScan, a very good option. And again, that'll convert your test into a PDF file, so you could just attach it to an email and send it to me. PDFs are the ideal, everybody. PDFs are very friendly as far as a file. Whether you're doing a PDF for each page or all your pages combined into one PDF, it's friendly one way or another and works very well as an attachment and being sent through email. Now, there are other options. I've had students who have some nice advanced software. Some of them use Microsoft Word. So on their electronic device, their tablets, their computers, they can kind of like write on the screen and record it that way, and now it's automatically on their computer. And same thing, some of those files, they get stored, some of them as a Word document, sometimes it gets stored as a PDF. That's pretty friendly. Word sometimes can have a few little hiccups because of different versions, but so far from what I've seen, I've always been able to make that work. So that's certainly a good option. Pictures. Pictures are kind of the last option. They're very common. They're what a lot of people first think of, but it's probably not your best option. If you send me a picture, what type of a picture? Does it come as a JPEG file or does it come as an HEIC file? I cannot access or open HEIC files. I have an Apple laptop. Maybe it's also due to the age, but I cannot convert those files. So HEIC files do not work. But anybody who's ever sent me an HEIC file, they're almost also sending me JPEG files, so you can make the conversion. JPEGs work. They're a little bit better, but they're still not great. JPEGs, no matter what, whether you attach them to an email or if you embed them in an email, either way, it's not great, okay? You could still easily overwhelm an email. Some of it has to do with your resolution. What is the quality of the photo? The better the quality, the more data it uses. So again, you could overwhelm an email. Sometimes it only takes 2 photos to do it. Sometimes you can fit 6 or 8. Again, a lot depends on the resolution and how you're sending it, how it's formatted. But that could come up, and then students are frustrated. How big are the tests? How many pages? Well, again, when I'm sending you the test, again, it all varies by class, but like test, quiz, 1, 2, 3, sometimes for a longer test, 6 pages. So if you send me 6 photos, again, sometimes that works in one email, but I have a lot of students who, in an attempt to keep themselves organized, each problem is its own separate file. So they're taking photos or they're taking PDFs of each page. If you're doing that, you may end up with like 20, 25 pages that you're sending me. In photos, you're going to overwhelm the email. So can you send me multiple emails? I'm fine with that. So again, I'm just trying to point out, JPEGs, photos, they can work, but they just have more possibilities for problems. So I would recommend a PDF as the best option, but I'm willing to work with you in any such way. Now, I still have a lot of other little tips and suggestions to make, but this leads to our first assignment. By next Monday, you need to send me something. That is your first assignment. I'm treating it like it's a quiz, a 5-point quiz. And you get all 5 points by emailing me, include your name and your class so I can make sure I give you proper credit, and you send me a file of something. I mean, you could literally just, maybe you've already started, whether it's your review, you're starting with the class, so you just send me a picture, a file of a problem, of your notes. I mean, honestly, you could send me a file of your grocery shopping list. I just want to make sure that before we get to those first graded items, test, quiz, whatever it is, I want to make sure we have a secure way that you can send me something and that you feel confident that that part is good, so that you're being graded on the work that you submit and that you're not worried about the actual submission process. That's one reason I want to do this. The second is that I can confirm you are actually in this class. I have to submit a little bit of a class list, like kind of an official class roster. And, you're submitting me this assignment shows to me that you have actually checked in, that you are an official person in this class, and that I can add you to the active roster. So there's 2 purposes for it. By the way, they're easy points. They're not bonus points. It's going to count as, a 5-point quiz. But this should be an easy 5 out of 5. It's just making sure if any problems come up, I'll still give you the full 5 points, but we could already work on it and say the PDF didn't go through or whatever the option. I see the scan, but the scan is blurry. We could already start to work out those issues before we get to a test or quiz. So, a couple of issues that have come up and a few pointers. Number 1, no matter how you scan your photos, your PDFs, the paper should be upright. Okay, I get a lot of people who send me sideways files. You should be able to fix that in an easy way, shape, or form. Either maybe it's scanned like that, but you could easily rotate it and then save the file and send that to me with your pictures. Again, you have all those options, but repeated sideways photos, I'm going to take points off for that. It's something we should be able to handle. If one accidentally slides by, you didn't catch, you forgot to rotate it, that's fine. But when I get a test and I get 10, 12 pages, it's a real, it bogs me down. It takes up a lot more time because I have to constantly keep adjusting or I have to flip my computer screen. So please, let's just take care of that right off the bat. You send me your file, you make sure it's facing the proper direction. It has the correct orientation. That is a big one. And like I said, if this is a repeated problem, I am going to take points off for it. I am holding you responsible for correctly submitting. So like I said, let's work that out right now so that way it's not an issue when we get to that point. The second thing, check your submission. That I receive a lot of requests from students, things like, if anything's missing, please let me know. No, that's not my job. That's part of your job. So, I mean, for some students, that's again another reason why some people do like to print out the test or quiz so that they're putting their answers and all their work on the test or quiz, and that's what they're scanning at the end. So then they can clearly see all the problems are there, everything I have, that it all went through. But if you're doing it individually, well, you still need to stay organized. I don't mind if you do the problems in your notes, and I would prefer if you're somewhat in order, but even if you're slightly out of order, because maybe you were doing problems, but then on part 2, problem number 4, you weren't quite sure how to do it, so you left that one blank, and then you kept going, and then you came back to it. Well, as long as at the end of your test, your last page, I see part 2, number 4, I could still match it up. But anything, if you're not submitting your test on the actual test itself, every problem should be clearly labeled. And now the second part of that, whether again, doing it on separate paper or putting it on the test, I should not see multiple solutions. Now there may be multiple techniques. Maybe you do them to confirm your answer, but I'm grading you and you get one shot to submit. It's not, well, maybe he'll look at these 2 solutions and he'll grade the better one. You give me 2 solutions, I grade the first. So if you're doing a lot of work, all of this is problem number 2, and you don't like this work and you just want me to grade this, cross this off. I mean, I don't mind if you still scan the whole page, but still make it clear what you want me to see. Keep it labeled. If you have other work you don't want me to see, well, don't show it to me. Cross it off, scratch it off, make it clear what your work is. So, pictures face up, we keep our problems labeled, and that's pretty much it. So whether, again, one person, it's a 4-page test with, let's just say, 15 problems or even 20 problems, and one person submits me a file, all 4 pages are on that one file, that's fine. Somebody else submits that same, it's the test, but they do the 4 pages as 4 separate scans, that's perfectly fine with me. Somebody else, they literally in their notes have a separate page for every individual problem. Again, I'm fine with all of that. It's about making sure you check when you send me the email. And if you make a mistake, no problem with you sending me a follow-up email. Oh, I forgot to include this page. Oh, I scanned the wrong thing. Please ignore the previous email, use that. I'm fine with all that, but you should confirm that. Before you submit, or like right after you submit, you should confirm, was everything there? Open your file that you sent me. Make sure all the problems are represented. Okay, that's a big one. All problems, all pages. You make the confirmation. Now, here's a second part though. It's electronic submissions. You are sending me an email. So, email, sometimes things get screwed up, particularly with the PDFs. That's why I keep suggesting that they're not your best option. I'm sorry, the JPEGs. PDFs work well, but the JPEGs. Sometimes people send an email, they feel good, they walk away, but then they get a return email that their email didn't go through. So what I would suggest, number one, again, you shouldn't be pushing to the end of the submission deadline. That in an ideal way, you're thinking about it, you're taking the test, the quiz, you're giving yourself time that if there are some problems you struggle with that you can go back, and then you still have time to give the submission, look things over, and that you're not pressed for time. It's another big reason why I'm giving you such a big window, is to try and make sure that these little obstacles, that you have the time to work your way through them. But the second thing that I want to say is that if you want a confirmation, that's okay. If you want to send me an email, I would suggest, as long as you've already checked that you did attach, that's one thing we all have done at some point. We send an email to somebody and we forget to include the attachment. So don't forget that, here's my exam and you forget to include the attachment, so you really are just sending me a blank email. So definitely check for that. Check to make sure all the problems, you attach the right file or files, everything is there. But as long as you have that email, you see it in your sent folder, if anything ever comes up, you could always forward me that, and that would fix any technology problems. You thought it went through, but it didn't, but it still is in your sent folder, but for some reason I didn't get it. Well, you could forward me your sent folder, and that's confirmation to me. You have a timestamp on that, so that would show to me that you did send it in the proper time, and we're not worried. But even though you have some of these electronic measures that you could confirm, I have no problem confirming that I received your test. But like I said, that doesn't mean I confirm that yes, I opened your test, that I can see everything, that all problems are there. That confirmation is simply, yes, I received your email. Yes, there was something attached to it that I'm using as your test quiz. That's what that confirmation would be. And I don't make that a habit. I only send that confirmation if you ask for it. So again, no problem. If you, I know for myself, I would probably do that. Just, hey, professor, could you please confirm you received this? And that's all you have to say. And I will send back to you, yes, thank you for your submission. That's all it takes. So after all of that, take your time. That's one of the biggest things, that you should be planning ahead and that you should be able to plan that you take your time to go through the exam. You shouldn't be crunched for time and you're trying to scramble to get it done and submitted. I mean, if that happens, that's unfortunate, but you should be planning so that that doesn't happen. There's no excuse for sloppy, unreadable, illegible work. And now I know I do not have the best handwriting, and you'll see in my videos, I really try and work to make sure so you could read it and it makes sense. And that's what I expect from you. So again, if you take photos, that's more of a common problem with photos. You send me a PDF, it typically works well, but people send me a photo and they're this far away. I can't read that. And even when I zoom in, I can't zoom in, I lose the clarity. So just little things. If you're taking photos or scans, if there are shadows, if you're taking a photo and you accidentally have a piece of the page cut off, those are little things you should look at as well. All that goes into what I was saying earlier as far as take your time, check. Did you include every problem? Can you see all the work for every problem? Are there shadows? For people who have very small penmanship, well, try and zoom in a little bit so I can see that. Again, you take too far of a photo and I just can't see the little writing that you have. The warning about extra sources, which has come up a couple of times. Of course, it's acceptable, but be careful. Those extra sources, you should really be using the videos, your books, all that stuff should be first. That's how you set what is reasonable work. What does he mean by those directions? But again, if you need a little something extra for a couple of problems, one here or there, again, that's fine, but be careful with that. If I see you doing something that's completely outside of what we've done and you start just going out into left field, I stop grading. So even if you get a correct answer, if the work doesn't make sense with what you're doing, which that's what happens sometimes. We don't know exactly what we're doing. We look up a solution online and then it just becomes a copying exercise and you don't realize what that person was doing, what steps are necessary, what they were saying, and then you end up losing points. So like I said, be careful with extra resources. Sometimes people are just, again, wrong resources, using techniques that haven't been learned, not following the directions. So again, there's other little things to be careful with, but to just remember, the test is supposed to be me using this as a measure of how well you're understanding the concepts and the material we're teaching. It's not supposed to be a measure in how well you could just look up answers. So as long as we keep those things in mind, this should be, overall, we shouldn't have any problems. And overall, in previous semesters, again, very few problems have come up. Technology, there are hiccups. It's just partially why I like YouTube. That's a very reliable resource. Email, very reliable. You don't have to worry about these things crashing very often. You want to have time. So in case there's any issues with submission, that you have the time to work it out, to let me know. But also just to realize that part of your submission, make sure you are taking your responsibility as well. So it's not just you're randomly sending me stuff, that by that deadline, you're sending me good stuff I can read and follow, and that everything is included. Okay, so that's that first submission, not to forget. So you finish this video, you could literally jump right to it and get to that first submission right now. You send me an email, you figure out, maybe you're not quite ready. And again, if you don't have a good option, TurboScan. That's a good app if you have a smartphone that you could use, a free app, so that you have some sort of a way to scan. So you want to get into that and you want to get me that email, your name, what class you're in, and if you want to include a message in it, that's fine, but I really need, again, the attachment so I could see we have a good way so you could submit your work. Okay, everybody, so that's it for all the introductory videos. You should have watched all 3. You all have something that comes after that, either getting a little more involved into the class, getting a little further, but let's have a good semester, everybody. And as always, any problems or concerns, just let me know and we'll work it out.